Hey, friends, welcome back to Crescendo, the podcast where we amplify the voices of women in business and share strategies to help you thrive as a solopreneur, freelancer, or small business owner. Today, I am thrilled to welcome my guest, Rena Forester. She's a teacher, healer, and mentor whose work centers around helping people connect with themselves to heal and grow, and she has an incredible story. Rena's the founder of a wellness business offering integrative health coaching, personalized yoga programs, and transformative workshops. With over a decade of experience working internationally, Rena combines her expertise as an educator with her passion for empowering individuals to lead healthier, calmer, and more balanced lives. Can I get an amen to that? Because we could all use it. What makes Rena's approach so unique is her belief that you are the healing you need. You're going to hear this in her story, and she's going to give you some practical tips and strategies to start applying this belief today. She meets every person where they are, and she empowers them to take charge of their own growth with compassion and intention. Today, on this episode, you're going to hear her philosophy. We are going to dig into her journey, and you'll learn how self-compassion and doing less can actually lead to profound growth, not just in life, but also in business. So if you've ever felt overwhelmed or disconnected in the hustle of entrepreneurship, this episode is for you. And I promise it's going to leave you inspired and equipped with practical ways to prioritize your well-being while growing your business. All right, without further ado, let's bring on Rena. Rena, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for the invitation, for the opportunity to be here. I'm also excited, Rachel.
Yay. I know you're tuning in today from Spain, where you're visiting with your parents. So I am grateful to you for taking some time out of your time away to chat with us. Can you start by telling us a little bit more about your journey? What inspired you to become a teacher, a healer, and a mentor to others?
Yeah, I'll try to share it on one foot. I actually recently, a really long version of the story was published on recovery.com. So if anybody wants, they can read more in depthly there.
Awesome.
Um,
We'll link that in the show notes so people can easily find it.
cool. Thank you. But something I actually didn't include in that story is my passion for teaching started when I was in high school. I was at Shull, and a preschool teacher gave a Dvar Torah about her experience working with the preschoolers. And it was a woman I've known my whole life, and I've told her this. I was so inspired by what she said that in that moment I decided I was going to be an educator. And I studied education at Indiana University, but I always had issues with like traditional education systems and just didn't see how I could fit in to schools. I didn't see how I would fit there. Long story short, I graduated college. I moved to Asia. I lived in South Korea. I lived in Vietnam. And that's where I started practicing yoga. And I was really like my connection to yoga became really serious when I went to India after Vietnam and learned that yoga is so much more than just the physical postures, and it's really a scientific method for removing ourselves from inner suffering. And my grandmother suffered from anxiety and depression for most of her life, and she took medication, and I saw that the medication didn't really work. And I had seen those anxiety and depression come up in myself, and I just didn't feel like medication was going to be the sustainable approach for me. And I thought, well, I better give this yoga thing a shot. And I did. And what I didn't know at the time is that I was carrying unconscious and unprocessed PTSD from a near death motorcycle accident that I had when I lived in Vietnam. So I'm not going to go into depth about all of that right now. As I shared, you can read about it in the article I published on that recovery.com published. But the gist is that I had a number of health conditions arise and turned to holistic forms of healing and educating myself to heal them. And when I finally understood that the motorcycle accident was near death and that I was carrying PTSD from it, and that was really the root of what had kept me stuck and kept me in dis-ease, I accepted that God kept me alive because I had a reason to be here. And what I understand today is that the reason for being here is being able to teach everything that I learned to heal myself and everything that I've been certified to teach others. So it feels really purposeful. And it's definitely a choice that I have to come back to time and time again to recommit to this path of teaching and mentoring and healing.
Wow, that is such a powerful story. Thank you for sharing it. Obviously, there's just a lot of depth there, and we could take this conversation in a lot of different ways. But first, I want to just say that you are the healing you need. I had all these questions about that, and now I feel like it makes perfect sense. You've really figured it out how to heal yourself and then took that concept so much deeper. At what point did you decide that you wanted to help other people, or do you only work with women, be the healing that they need and help them see that and align with it and, really ignite their own healing journey?
Well, first, to answer your question, I work primarily with women, but there are some men who have found their way to me and I work with them. And yeah, we'll leave it at that for now. And I would say my decision to like take my journey and use that as something that helps others heal started unconsciously when I decided to study special education. I mean, I have a degree that combined elementary education and special education, and I myself was labeled as being in special education. And so unconsciously, I wanted to help people who had been through a similar thing as me, but I only realized that probably in 2019. I was sat in a session with a woman who was a therapist of mine. She's also an astrologist, and I hired her to do an astrology reading. And she was looking at where Chiron is placed in my chart. And we were speaking about diagnoses. At the time, I had been diagnosed with PCOS, and it was like I dove deep into understanding PCOS and hormones and womb healing.
I'm
And
just going to say that's polycystic ovarian syndrome for people who
yeah,
aren't familiar with the acronym. Okay.
yeah, thank you, Rachel. And so this woman said she knew that I was taking this healing really seriously. And she said something like, I would encourage you, and she knew my history of having been diagnosed as having a learning disability and then becoming a special educator. And she said, I would encourage you to evaluate your relationship with diagnoses. And I really sat with that for a few years and understood that I mean, I don't always resonate with these words, but I know a lot of people do and some people don't. But I alchemized my own pain, not only into healing, but into something that then I could teach others how to do also. I did that with special ed. I have chills as I speak. And I've seen myself now be able to do it with all of, like, in the article I wrote and that goes in depth with my story, I've done it with anxiety, depression, PCOS, orthorexia, which is unhealthy eating patterns, disordered eating, herniated disc, and PTSD. So
Wow.
it really, yeah, it feels like a passion and a purpose. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that that I feel purposeful in the work that I do.
Yes. Oh my gosh, this is incredible. It also just goes to show you, when we're young kids and we are inspired by different people, right? Or people come into our lives. This teacher came into your life and you then envision becoming a teacher. I can't imagine that this is exactly the kind of education that you saw yourself going into. My story is somewhat similar. I trained to be a singer when I was young and really thought that the stage was going to be my home and my career. And at some point, I also have talked about that on this podcast, so people can go back to the trailer. My path took a different direction. And it was only until I actually started my first business that I truly found my voice. And, this podcast is really all about finding your voice. And so your story just exemplifies that so deeply. When would you say that you really felt it in your core that you had found your voice and you had found your home within this business?
Well, first of all, I want to just reflect on what you just said. And as you shared your story, it clicked for me that this podcast for you is like you getting to use your voice and not singing, but use your voice. So awesome that that's how it is for you too. For
Yeah.
me, probably when I got divorced. And that's a part of the story I forgot to mention before. What I now believe is that because I was carrying this unconscious trauma, and I've spoken about this with my former husband, and he's given me permission to speak about it wherever I want. we have thank God, a really peaceful and respectful relationship today.
Gotcha.
But what happened a couple years ago was that like I was carrying this unconscious trauma and attract him into my life, and he also has some really serious trauma. And neither one of us had the tools to be in that dynamic together, and it exploded. And it really exploded, long story short, with me getting up and leaving. And it was the most painful decision that I've ever had to make to date, but staying in that relationship was not an option. And it was like when I left the home, I had to remake that decision multiple times a day to not go back to the home. And so that was really, really painful and also really empowering to like be in this decision that I made. And I understood, it felt like my life was like ground zero. Like everything that I thought I was building to build my what I thought was my dream life had just collapsed. And not just him, I had no money coming in. There were no I had like one client, and I just understood. I understood like kind of understanding like the mind body connection, and that it all starts in the gut, and it all starts in and the nervous system also is like foundational to our health. That in that time in my life, I made my gut health and my nervous system health a priority, understanding that that was going to set me up for success. So, like, I prioritized making fermented foods. I prioritized eating food that I was cooking as much as possible. I prioritized yoga and meditation and getting a full night of sleep every night. And I, as you mentioned and when you introduced me, like, I understood that I needed to do as little as possible, that I could only proceed at the pace that my nervous system would allow me to proceed at. And I needed to focus on one main thing that needed to get done every day. Maybe on the days when I had that one client, like all I had to do was show up for that one client, and anything that happened beyond that was a bonus. Or like when I finally had to pack up and move out of the house, it was like, okay, literally all you have to do is get the things in the suitcase. Anything else that happens today is a bonus.
And we
And
often talk about that in business. It's, we feel like if we're not doing all the things, then we're not doing anything. And forcing it doesn't work. And so being able to scale back is just as important sometimes as being able to scale up or forward and knowing when that is needed and required of you. So, wow, kudos to you for recognizing that that was going to be, the journey for you.
yeah, thank you. And it really like at that point I was certified as a health coach. I was certified as a yoga teacher, but I understood that if I wasn't doing it on myself, I wasn't going to be an integritous, is that a word?
I don't know.
Integritous.
We'll just coin it here. I like to coin new terms.
Great, awesome. So an integritous teacher, and that's what mattered most to me, and that I understood that whatever I was going through in myself was going to ultimately make me a better professional, but it was a time that I had to focus on myself. And now I'm really grateful. Like my dad keeps saying, Rena, you're in such a different place. You're in such a different place. And for me, I know he means well, but there's also a part of it that is hard for me to hear because I have so much respect for the woman that I was at that time, that other people looked at me, and I've been told your life looked like it was a mess, how no one would ever hire you to mentor their kids. And I look at myself and I say, look what I was doing. I was in a country where I don't have any family. I chose to commit to still being self-employed. I was fermenting my own food. I was making bone broth. I was cleaning my floors every week. I was sleeping 8 to 10 hours a night. I was writing morning pages every morning. I had the most profound connection with nature that I've ever had in my life. And these are things that like general society doesn't necessarily view as success. So I can understand why people would say your life looks like a mess, but I'm so proud of who I was. And I really do believe that it laid the foundation for me now to be able to be who I am. And now people look at me and like, people think I'm so gorgeous. I'm stunning. I look strong. Like they're so inspired by me. And like I see the connection. And I hope that the listeners will also understand that like sometimes we have to break ourselves down in order to build ourselves back up. And that thank God I've had the opportunity to do that. And it really, like, because I've been through it, I'm able to hold space for other people and going through that process. And I really, like, I view anybody that wants to, like, this journey is not for the faint of heart, but anybody who, like, is really ready to be their strongest, most inspiring person, I believe that everybody has the ability to do that. And it's really my honor to be able to support people in that process.
Oh my God, you are speaking my soul language right now. It's so easy for us to look at any parts of our lives or our businesses and pull out all of the negative, all the things that aren't working, all the things that aren't going well, all the messes, whether people on the outside see them or not. And I often talk with my clients, not often, like every single client, we start our client sessions. What are your wins of the week, right? They don't have to be big. They could be micro wins, micro milestones, right? But we have to honor and celebrate and give space to the things that are going well. And I love how you just described how proud you were of yourself during that time because we're not all or nothing, right? We're not like all bad or all a mess or all in this horrific time of our lives. And so it's so beautiful to hear you expressing what was going so well for you and and knowing that, as you said, is what's able to help you build towards the future. It's like the foundation, right? And the mess is part of that, right? It's
Yeah,
all part of the story that builds us into who we become next.
totally. Yeah, I really appreciate that you see it, and it's so important that you're able to do that with your clients. And it's a big thing I do with my clients also, always focusing on what have been the successes since the last session. And it's something that for myself, like I still do this every day. And now I'm at a point where like things in my life, thank God, are going smoothly. So it would be really easy for me to not do this. But it's like davka because things are going well that I remember I need to sit down at the very least, write down 3 things I'm grateful for from the day or 3 successes that I had from the day. Yes, I mean, our mind, you might know this, Rachel, but I don't know if all the listeners do. Our minds have a tendency to view the things that are not going well. And it's actually a survival mechanism because that's where we have to protect ourselves. But so often it's hyperactive. And that's where we have work that we can do to actually train our minds. And you do this with your clients, and I do it too. I'm sure you do it with yourself also. That, and I'm sure some of the listeners do too. But just to understand the importance of acknowledging what's going well, where is there success, where is there something to be grateful for, like it actually rewires the brain and allows us to build that strong foundation that moves us forwards. So thank you for saying
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah. Okay. A lot of entrepreneurs feel this pressure to do more in their businesses. And you've actually talked about how we need to be doing less. So, can you explain how this applies and how can people actually apply this to their businesses? Because I think so many of us, we look at our to-do list and we're like, what do you mean do less? How could I possibly do less? So, unpack this. What does this mean?
Yeah, I'll try my best, and it's definitely a practice that, like, for me feels like it's for life. Because, like, when I went through my divorce and recommitted to all of my personal things, like, I was doing very I guess that's actually a good place to start because it was at that time that I was still committed to having my own business, but I had so little energy to put into it that I was like, "What is the bare minimum that I need to do in order to keep this business alive and afloat but to not have it be something that's depleting my own energy. And my own energy was so low that it was really easy for me to tell like when it was even going lower. And the thing I started with was tracking my finances. And I said, okay, I need to know how much money I have in the bank because I don't want to set myself up to be in a financial disaster. And it was the last thing I wanted to do. Like I, like so many other women and so many other people, like had so much anxiety about opening my bank account. My dad's a finance guy. Like I grew up with people him talking about finance all the time, but like I had my own stuff. And I
It's the
just like
syndrome of the cobbler's children. I mean, this is how it goes, you know.
yeah, so I
If
so I
my dad's
committed
a doctor, none of us wanted to go into medicine. Yeah. So I
so
feel like
yeah,
it's the same thing.
really, really similar, totally.
Yeah.
But I committed in that at that time to every single day opening up my US bank account, my Israel bank account, my PayPal account, and my wallet, and anywhere else that I may have had money. I have a Google spreadsheet and writing every single number and checking my credit card statement. And I do this to this day. I write down all those numbers, and then I write the total. I try to also write any money that I earn on a given day, but I'm not always on top of that. So for a while, that was it. It was like, this is what I'm doing for my business. I'm opening my bank account. And then like I had a lot of resistance to email. And suddenly I was like, okay, if I am going to be a business owner and have a component of it that's online, I need to check my email. So then it became every morning I check my email and I check my bank account, and that's it. And then I had a lot of resistance to posting on social media, and eventually I understood, okay, if I'm committing to this business, then I need to just look at this as a tool for me to let the world know that I exist, and I need to post on social media every day. So then it became, okay, every morning, check my finances, check my email, post on social media.
Yeah,
And then
so it's like
slowly,
it's literally one thing at a time, just making a commitment to one thing, doing that thing consistently, really
yeah.
building that muscle for the repetition. And then when you feel like you have been conquering that, then adding the next thing.
Exactly. And as it goes, clients naturally have started to come to me. And there's obviously, it's an ever going process of attracting clients and growing the business. But like from that point on, it's more organic of, okay, there's the next task to add on, like you said. And it's also a process that I work with my health coaching clients. If we're working, the process of health coaching is a lot, but like on one foot, it's changing habits. So I work with my clients on getting really clear on their goals. And that also I pull from my degree in special ed, because special ed is a lot of writing goals and benchmarks for kids. So like I work with clients, and I actually have myself in a health coaching program where I'm the coach at the moment. It's not the first time I've done it. And so like it's a lot for me, it's kind of become inherent, but for the listeners, like it's getting clear on where is it attainable for me to be in 1 month, in 3 months, in 6 months. And then every 2 weeks checking in with, okay, what am I going to do to take my self one step closer, and making it like we've talked about, like really bite-sized, one step at a time, like you said.
Yeah, that's a good strategy and action plan.
Thank you.
So you've had your business for a while now, and I know you're getting ready to expand. Before we talk about your expansion, tell me about some of the challenges that you've experienced and how you've overcome them.
Well, I definitely shared about a big challenge, like getting divorced through my business in a direction I never expected it to go in. But I was able to use it for growth, thank God. I mentioned also a challenge of just being able to share myself on social media. And for me, it's a little bit different from marketing myself. Like, I understand that I have gifts to share and that I need to talk to people about my gifts in order for them to know that I exist. But I had a lot of resistance to like social media, like social media as a platform goes against so much of what I believe and so much of what I teach people about being present and being intentional, and like from an economic perspective, using money to fuel what I believe in. That it was hard for me to get past all of that and just say, Rena, we live in an imperfect world. Take the good from this and just focus on that. The financial piece is definitely like an ongoing struggle, and it's something that like a lot of people don't talk about because there is so much shame and so much social stigma of talking about money. But to this day, I pray regularly for my finances to be at a place where they are secure, where they're sustainable and where they're stable. And I'm not there yet. And so it's a constant feeling of discomfort inside of my system, and I just lean into believing that what I have to offer the world is needed, and it's coming from good intention, and so the money has to come to support it, to make it happen.
Yeah, I
Um,
love that. I love that piece of advice, like thinking, leaning into this belief that it's all going to happen and lead us to finances that are secure, stable, and sustainable. It's a really
thank
good belief to cultivate. So if you're listening, you might want to write this one down. Okay, Rena, when you and I connected, you shared with me your vision for this this new space. Tell us what you're up to and where this expansion is leading you.
Okay, Rachel, this
And
timing
your
is
light is, like, radiating from you now. You're yeah, like, you're so excited, I can see, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you will see Rena's face. She just totally lit up, so let's hear it.
thank you. Well, it's so serendipitous because literally, like for weeks, I've been like, just wait a couple of days, just wait a couple of days. It's finally, I'm able to share the landing page that I've worked really hard on for Rejuve, my new boutique wellness center, and it is housed in Caesarea. And basically, it's a place for all of the services that I offer to have a home. So there's gentle, individualized yoga classes, kids yoga classes, which are really good for ADHD, fermentation workshops, day retreats, customizable, affordable for 1 to 2 people, intro to integrative nutrition workshops. For the first month, I'm offering special priced consultations and some other special surprises. So I worked really hard on this landing page that lays everything out. There's exclusive pricing for the whole first month, and I'm calling this first month Be the Light. And
Mm.
anybody who attend it's all also there's limited spaces available. So I worked really hard on creating a clear and as seamless as possible registration process so that people you can go literally if you're interested after you listen to this episode, you can go to my landing page, you can click and sign up. Anybody who comes to a Be the Light event locks in the reduced pricing until April 1st. And in addition to Rejuve Boutique Wellness Center, I also have Drew, which is my corporate well-being program. I have it in partnership with another woman, and it's a holistic well-being program for companies and for organizations that basically addresses the micro well-being of each human that's working for the company, because that's the core of the business while staying aligned with the macro goals of the company so that the work the people and the company are able to achieve their goals more efficiently and more effectively. And that also is intended to be affordable and customizable. And from our research, we're the only one-stop shop on the market. So like where organizations nowadays may have a coach from here and a yoga teacher from here and a Pilates instructor here, like we offer like all of these things together.
That sounds amazing. Now, are you taking that on the road or is that just applicable to companies and organizations here in Israel?
Good question. It is applicable to companies and organizations worldwide. Most of the work can be done online. Well, all of the work can be done online, actually.
Great. Wow, it's been so fun talking to you and hearing about your business. And I think sometimes, even more importantly, hearing about the struggles and how you've overcome them, how you've really grown out of a very difficult time in your life and used it as fuel for what's next and this beautiful vision that you're launching. I will, of course, link the landing page in the show notes. And before we wrap, I want to ask you one last question, which is something I ask all my guests. And that is, what is one tip you have for other women in business striving to honor their authentic voice?
One tip for women in business striving to honor their authentic voice. Before you speak, allow the muscles in your body to relax like you're melting down into whatever's below you. And the words that will come out will be very different than if you hadn't done that. It's something that I've tried to do on this podcast, and it's definitely also a practice that I'm committed to for life.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. If you want help doing that, because I think there are a lot of people listening who are like me and they're like, I feel like I have to say the next thing right now, or I'm not exactly sure what I want to say, or how do I relax the mind and how do I really tap into what I'm feeling and experiencing in the body, then reach out to Rena. These are things that she can help you with. I will link all of her socials and everything in the show notes. And I also want to mention before we wrap that I am now enrolling for Spring Forward, which is my retreat happening on the beautiful Mediterranean Sea, January 12th through 14th. If you are really taking to heart Rena's and my conversation today and some of what we dug into around pausing and reflecting and utilizing space to tap into what's going on inside of us in order to build something so much greater outside of us. I want to invite you to join us. We are registering through the end of December, and all the links will be in the show notes. So you'll be able to find out all the details about what's going on there. But this is really an opportunity to rejuvenate and reconnect to your vision and your mission with a full head and heart, and also dig into some of the strategy in your business and getting clear on what you want next. What is your own expansion going to look like in a space surrounded by other heart centered, like minded, really, really wonderful women who will be there to support you and cheer you on along the way. So I hope to see you there. And with that, thank you again, Rena. And to all of you, thank you for tuning in and keep sharing your voice.